Hello. Welcome to this talk. Happy to see so many of you have decided to show up. Can you all hear me? Great. Well, my name is Sorgenfrei. I am a director of campaigns with Anima International, and today we're going to be talking a bit about humor. And the guy we're laughing at here is my good friend Kristo Mudima from Mill in Finland. And not only is he one of the funniest people in the movement, he's also a person who's really good at laughing at himself. And this is a quality we'll be talking about later in this presentation. Now, first of all, thank you, Gabrielle, for using the photo that I decided to use for my talk as well.
Sorry, can you have the microphone closer to your mouth?
Yes. Okay, great. So, if you were at my talk last year, you might remember that I grew up on a sheep farm. And my dad is still a proud sheep farmer till this very day. And when I was a kid, he had a very good friend who was also a sheep farmer, who also had a son around my age. Now, the four of us used to work a lot with the sheep together, and we even took a long trip to Ireland, where we drove around in the countryside, visiting sheep farms, looking at sheep, talking with sheep farmers. It was pretty much everything about sheep when I was a kid. And of course, it was no surprise that both dads really wanted their sons to follow in the footsteps and become sheep farmers, so we could raise even more sheep together. And whereas my colleague's son went on to study biology and becoming a sheep farmer, I decided to read philosophy, became a vegan, and started an animal rights organization. What a fucking disappointment I was. Now, can you imagine the ridicule he had to deal with? Being the laughingstock of the entire village, the long sleepless nights alone in the darkness, the bitter tears of shame. No, but this was actually not what happened. Although we had some discussions in the beginning when I became a vegan, what he did was he actually replied with a smile and said, "Also you, my son Brutus." And I really admire and love this quality in my dad, being able to laugh in this situation. And it's a quality that I try to develop within myself and also take with me in my professional life. Now, the aim of this talk is to lay out the theoretical foundation of how does humor actually even work, like what makes us laugh. And then in the second part, we're going to be exploring humor as a tool for communication, campaigning, persuasion, and finally, personal growth. Now, a little disclaimer. You might not all find everything in this talk amusing or funny, and some of it might even, hurt a little bit on your identity if you have a strong vegan identity. But I'm not out here to hurt anybody, like the examples used serves a certain point. So why even consider using humor more in animal advocacy? Well, I guess we can all recognize that these three people are some of the biggest rock stars of our time. And humor is becoming more and more important in communication. A recent study showed that 12% of online Americans cited The Daily Show as a place they got their news. And remember that this is the show that's actually making fun about the news. So why is humor not used so much in animal advocacy? Well, I think it's a pretty straightforward answer to it. Humor is really difficult. Stuff that we find funny, our friends might not find funny, and in general, it's pretty hard to predict exactly what people find funny. So whereas we've become quite the experts of using emotions as anger and sadness and joy in our work, we're still far from having mastered the art of humor. And I think this also makes sense because whereas anger and sadness and joy are quite straightforward human emotions, laughter and humor is something else. It's not really an emotion. It's something that requires cognition or cognitive abilities. So before we get into it, let's start out with a very brief history of humor. And I know a lot of you people came here today hoping for a lot of fart jokes. There's going to be only one, and it's going to be very old. It might actually be the oldest known joke to mankind. And I'm not exactly sure what that says about humans, but humor wasn't always as appreciated in society as it is today. Actually, back in the ancient Greek societies, philosophers such as Socrates and Plato and Aristotle considered humor part of the weaker qualities of humans. And this attitude towards humor moved on into the Middle Ages, with the Christian thinking was only made stronger with the Christian thinking. And even a modern political philosopher such as Thomas Hobbes actually said about humor, "I may therefore conclude that the passion of laughter is nothing else but the sudden glory arising from some sudden conception of some eminency in ourselves by comparison with the infirmity of others." Now, this attitude towards humor might seem a bit unfair to us today, but we have to remember that the richness and variety of humor that we enjoy today, it wasn't always accessible to people in other times in history. So when Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas and Thomas Hobbes speak out against humor here, they're actually speaking out against a certain type of humor. Humor based on superiority. Now, superiority, relief theory, and incongruity theory are the three main theories of why we laugh. And we're about to dig a little bit closer into each and every one of them. But before we do that, I want you to associate them with these animals. And these are the animals that I believe will find this kind of humor funny. So this is going to make it easier for you to remember how this humor works. So in superiority theory, or cat humor, it's all about being a jerk. From a superiority theory perspective, humor results not just from something irrational or unexpected, but from seeing oneself as superior, right, or triumphant, in contrast to one who is inferior, wrong, or defeated. So this is very much the type of humor that we see used when the left is trying to portray the right as some inbred hillbillies, or the right is trying to present the left as some immature teenage hippie social justice warriors. And it's also the humor that we see that's very much built upon humiliation based on identities of sex or gender or race. And of course, this is the kind of humor that we as vegans are very, very used to in the form of mockery, something we're going to look closer at in a bit as well. So this is cat humor. Now, in relief theory, it's a more mechanical concept. According to relief theory, we laugh because we build up some tension in the body, and upon relieving it, the body almost reacts automatically with laughter. Relief theory maintains that laughter is a homeostatic mechanism by which psychological tension is reduced. Humor may thus, for example, serve to facilitate relief of the tension caused by one's fear. Now, this could be an example of the Brazil prank in the supermarket that I'm sure we all are familiar with. They're sampling some meat to the customers, and as the customers try out the meat, the machine is running out of meat. And the butcher puts a live piglet in the machine and starts up the machine again. And of course, the customers are horrified to see that a live piglet went into the machine that made the sausages. Now, quick after, of course, they reveal that it's a prank, and they take out the piglets, and the customer can laugh. So tension has been built, and it's relieved, and people laugh. It's also the kind of humor that's used when you put like a scary toy on someone and get them scared, and they're able to laugh about it soon after. But the tension can also be existing in the room already. So when my good friend David Peterson, who's working with ProVeg now, when he was working with Meat Free Monday, and he went out to the butchery school to do a talk about Meat Free Monday, he knew there was probably going to be some tension in the room here. Like, here's the vegan telling us that we're eating too much meat. So what did he do? He started out cracking a joke about his own identity, making fun about vegans, making everybody laugh together, relieving the tension in the room. So this is what I consider panda humor. According to incongruity theory, it's all about breaking the normal patterns, breaking what people are expecting to happen next, something else happens. Individuals must have rationally come to understand normal patterns of reality before they can notice differences, explaining why mental sophistication is required for this type of humorous appreciation. Now, this is very much the humor that you see used in Far Side. This is all about breaking patterns and norm violation. It's also what you see a lot of memes are based upon, where you're using elements of surprise or obscurity. And then, of course, it's about using concepts in the wrong context. And this type of humor is what I consider dog humor, something dogs would laugh about. Now, let's have a test. Let's see if you can tell cat and panda and dog humor from each other by looking at some really annoying jokes about vegans. And where a better place to go look for those than my dad's Facebook wall. So, Vegetarian is an old Indian word for bad hunter. Great, Dad. Is it funny? No. Was it funny the first time you saw it? Not really either. What kind of humor is this built upon? Shout it out. Exactly. This is about being superior, like the meat eater superior to the vegetarian. So this is cat humor. I eat meat to protest that vegetarians eat the animal's food. This is just embarrassing. What kind of humor is this built upon? Shout it out. I would say this is also about being arrogant or being superior to the vegetarian. You're like smarter than the vegetarian here. I'm a second-hand vegetarian. Cows eat grass, I eat cows. This is still not funny. But now the vegetarian or the vegan are a little bit less the butt of the joke here, and the humor is more based upon some playing with the words or using the concepts in the wrong context. So what kind of humor would this be? Dog humor, yes. How to confuse a vegetarian? This one actually made me laugh as well. I can appreciate this one. I think now we clearly moved away from superiority theory. Like now it's more good-willed, actually. And of course, this is also an example of dog humor. What happens when you're raised by vegan parents? Right? I mean, like now it's getting okay, you know, like I can laugh about this. And of course, this is also an example of dog humor. We're vegans, what would you recommend for us? A taxi? Get out of here? So rude. I love it. I really love it. This one really cracked me up. I love this one. But my dad can also laugh about himself. So when my uncle is posting memes on his page, he's also able to laugh about his own identity. So, you know, like. But now to answer the biggest question of the century, can jokes about vegans actually be really funny? And to look into this, let's have a look at a video.
He's a vegetarian, and I eat meat, so he's always on my case. Hey man, if you knew what went on behind the scenes of the slaughterhouse, you would become a vegetarian. Look, I used to work at a restaurant. If you knew what went on behind the scenes at the salad bar, you would become an alcoholic. When our cauliflower turned green, we just called it broccoli.
That salad's totally grossing me out. I've completely lost my appetite. Plants give off oxygen. Why would you eat them? It's not that vegetable eaters are bad people. It's just that they're terrible people. This sausage is a meat-based vegetable substitute for cucumber. It's got the taste and the texture of an actual cucumber, with none of the cucumber. That coconut was gonna grow into a palm tree. Why would you eat that?
JP was the most illogical, condescending person I've ever met.
Saying something like that's just a symptom of being overly alkaline. It just makes you mean and you can't think straight.
Okay, so this seemed to receive some better responses than my dad's Facebook wall. Sorry, Dad. And it's not really surprising because whereas a lot of the humor in the memes we were looking at are based on the vegetarian and the vegan being the butt of the joke, here, at least in last case, we're laughing with the vegan. We're not laughing at the vegan, we're laughing with the vegan. And there's a huge difference between those two situations. This is something that the American professor in communication, John C. Mayer, was interested in. So he started looking into, it's not only interesting the theories of what makes us laugh, it's more interesting what are actually the function of us laughing. And he decided that this could be divided into 4 different categories: identification, clarification, enforcement, and differentiation. And as you can see, these different concepts are lined out over a line, going from being unifying and making us laugh together, connecting and explaining, to being really divisive, laughing at, ridiculing, and exposing us. So in the function of identification, that's something like I tried to attempt in the beginning of this talk. I tell a funny story, making us laugh together. You like me a little bit better. Maybe you listen a bit more to what I have to say. In clarification, we're still laughing together, but now we're also laughing a little bit at the person. So this is in a situation where somebody is violating like a small cultural norm. And we're using a joke to point out that, you know, like they broke a little rule here, and we're laughing a bit at the person, but we're still laughing kind of together. This can also be an example of people using the equipment wrong and pointing that out. In enforcement, we're laughing a little bit together, but we're mainly laughing at somebody now. And to illustrate this, I'll use a recent case we had from Denmark, actually from last week. A big retailer decided to put out an ad doing advertisement for broiler meat. And although this broiler meat does have a little bit higher animal welfare, it's still fast-growing broilers. So when they decided to use a slim, thin egg-laying hen, of course Lina from Anima couldn't let them have that. So we altered the ad and showed, okay, what should the ad really have looked like, posted it, made a shit storm on their Facebook page, and got a lot of media attention from it. So this is an example of using enforcement as a function. In differentiation, now it's all about being divisive, laughing at, ridiculing, and exposing. And as we'll see, of course, this is very related to superiority theory, cat humor. Now, there's a relation between these concepts, and we're not going to go through this now and give everybody a headache. Let's instead look at a case that can illustrate the theory and the functions, how they work together. This is a defining moment in the squatters' history in Copenhagen in the 80s. What you see being thrown here in the air is actually a toilet being thrown down on the police trying to evict squatters from an occupied house. Now, prior to this situation, the squatters had been quite peaceful. They had still been occupying houses, like they needed places to live. There were high unemployment rate. They were unhappy. They wanted places to live for free, and basically a place where they could decide for themselves. But they were quite peaceful, and they let the police carry them out. But things had been escalating, and people had been beating up, and there were more struggles between the police and the squatters. And they were only about to get a lot worse as something like a war zone broke out on Nørrebro, with parts of the city being blocked off for days and days, and with fights with the police. In '83, when the squatters had been able to occupy a big house called Alotria and had been keeping it for some time, the police had been building up for evicting them from the house for a couple of weeks, and tension was really high now. Everybody was expecting this was going to be the battle of the century between the police and the squatters. And something like 1,000 police officers were issued to take part in these actions. So here you see the strategy. They were using a crane and a container to get policemen up on the building and drill through the wall and get in and arrest everybody like that. But when they entered the building, it was empty, and as they got down to the basement, they realized that the squatters had dug a tunnel under the street and escaped through a basement store on the other side of the street, under the nose of 1,000 police officers. Now, this wasn't the proudest day in Danish police history. And of course, the police became the laughingstock of the entire nation, and everybody started seeing the squatters from a new perspective. So let's look at the three theories and try to understand what made people laugh. Well, according to superiority theory, we're laughing because the police are being mocked. So what functions are being used? Well, there's identification. Of course, there's an identification of the squatters themselves coming more together from being successful in an action. But all the people who kind of didn't like the squatters because they were aggressive and stupid and throwing rocks and fighting with the police, now all of a sudden they saw a different side of them. So the people who can actually were kind of like on the fence about what they really thought about it, or people who felt like the little man or didn't like the system, or people who considered themselves like smart and cunning, well, all of a sudden it was a lot easier for them to identify with the squatters, because you tend to want to be on the side of the winners, and clearly the squatters were the winners in this situation. At the same time, of course, there was a strong differentiation going on between the squatters and police and the strong supporters of the police. And the effect, as you laugh at someone being defeated, they lose authority, and you win yourself. So squatters came out as the winners of this round and gained some popularity with the public. Now, according to relief theory, tension has been building up and up and up for a couple of weeks. Everybody's expecting the battle of the century. Turns out to be one big joke. Nothing is going to happen. And again, the squatters becomes the relievers of the tension, and it becomes easier to identify with them. So again, they gain popularity. According to incongruity theory, we're laughing because of the surprising element. Nobody had expected that something like this could happen. And we're just all impressed with how cunning they were. So they changed the rules of the game in this situation. People believe this is going to be a battle that's going to be fought on strength. And then it turns out, no, the battle is actually about who's the smarter. So we're surprised. And again, the functions in play here, although there's differentiation, there's an element of clarification going on here. Well, the police are not always the smartest as, they want to present themselves, and the squatters or the activists could actually be smart too. And there's also an element of differentiation going on here where the attributes assigned to the police as the peacekeepers and clever and powerful, and the aggressor, simple-minded, powerless being described to the squatters, these actually changes place in this situation, because in this situation, the police were the one who brought all the battle, and the squatters were the one who made it peaceful and made it all a joke. So let's look at a couple of more cases and see how humor is being used in animal advocacy. And since we are in Prague, what a better place to start with the mighty Obraz and the way that they handled a criticism of their fur investigation when farmers started accusing them of poisoning dogs.
Se závažným obviněním přišel majitel kožešinové farmy ve Vítějevsi na Svitavsku. Tvrdí, že mu obránci zvířat otrávili psy.
Domníváme se, že to souvisí s tím, že zde asi za týden bylo filmováno, byl rozbitý plot a tím, že byly ty psy otráveny, mohli sem někdo vniknout.
Yeah, I just love that. And let's have a closer look. So why are we laughing? We're laughing at the inconsistency. The farmer says the dogs were poisoned. Okay, so that means they were so dangerous, that they have to poison them to even get in. And the function are then clarifying in the sense that we see, no, the dogs are actually really cute, they want to be cuddled when the activists enter the farm. And what is the effect? Farmers are losing credibility. Animal defenders gain credibility. This is also a case from a fur investigation. This is in Denmark back in 2011 after two major fur investigations that had put the industry quite under pressure. They were doing a big advertisement campaign, recruiting Danish celebrities to do pro-fur advertisement campaigns with them. And in this situation, they had actually managed to get one of the largest or biggest celebrities in Denmark on board, Iben Hjejle. And not only did she do the ad campaign, she also did an interview after visiting a mink farm, explaining how amazing everything was, how perfect everything was. And we were like, really? So we decided to edit a version of the film, putting side by side her interview of her impressions on the farm with the footage that we had shot on the fur farms, just to kind of try to see what that would look like together. And this actually became a viral video and became a big story in the media. And yeah, she didn't like that.
Så tog vi ud og besøgte den her farm, som det gjorde meget stort indtryk. Det er smukke dyr. De Det er jo, altså kan man se lynhurtigt, et af altså det er måske nok det dyrehold i Danmark, som har det bedst. Jeg har ikke noget problem med det. Det er samtidig også rovdyr. De hører hjemme i de buer. De skal ikke fistre rundt i den danske natur, for hører de slet ikke hjemme. Det var hyggeligt. Der var ordentlige forhold. Det så pænt og rent og fint ud.
Oops. Now, of course, this is humor in a different way from what we saw earlier. This is not something that really makes us laugh. This is more about ridicule and exposing the obscurity of her portrait of fur farming. So the kind of laughing that's being used here is like, again, now it's like really cat humor, like superiority. We're really pointing out that we believe she's wrong. And the functions in play here are enforcement and differentiation. So in the same way that there was an element of enforcement with the campaign with the retailer using the wrong image of a hen or of a chicken, here we're using enforcement to kind of like show how there's alternative realities, and the one that she's pointing out is in direct violation with ours. And this also further creates a warning to other celebrities to get involved with these campaigns with Copenhagen Fur. And actually, they didn't continue this campaign after this. And at the same way, of course, there's the differentiation. The actor, fans, and probably a lot of other people get really opposed to Anima as we use such kind of like dirty tactics. Can humor make us question tradition? This is actually not from an animal advocacy, not from an animal organization. This is from a TV station. And the joke is built upon the program, The Lion's Den or Dragon's Den. I don't know if you're all familiar with it, if you all have it. But this is basically a program where some inventor has to present a new idea, a new invention, and some experts have to decide if they want to invest in it. So in this sketch, they decided to look at what if milk was a new product? Like, how would that look? How would that pitch look?
Den næste iværksætter er Lasse, der har udviklet et produkt, der skal hjælpe med at... Ja, det må han hellere selv forklare.
Hej løver. Jeg vil gerne tilbyde 5% af min virksomhed for 20 milliarder kroner. En dag, da jeg løb rundt ude på marken og hæv køerne i patterne, der hæv jeg så lang tid på et tidspunkt, at der kom noget hvidt ud af patterne. Og det er ikke sæd. Det er tyndere end sæd. Og det er det, mit produkt er.
Altså, er det tis?
Nej, tissen kommer ud her, og mit produkt kommer ud af de her huller. Og det hedder mælk.
Okay. Og hvad har du så tænkt, vi skal med det her?
Prøv at drikke det.
Nej, det er simpelthen for ulækkert. Jeg har ikke tænkt mig at drikke det der.
Det er meget tykt. Altså, der ligger sådan en hinde inde i ens mund.
Min plan er, at alle børnene skal drikke det om morgenen.
Altså, hvorfor skulle jeg drikke det her i stedet for vand?
Fordi det der kommer ud af patterne, nævn noget vand, der kommer ud af patterne. Jeg kunne godt tænke mig, at vi samlede en hel masse køer på meget, meget lidt plads, og så kunne jeg hive dem i patterne i rigtig lang tid. Og derfor kunne jeg godt tænke mig at sælge det her produkt.
Jeg tror ikke, det er meningen, at mennesker skal drikke det her.
Der er også rigtig mange, der får rigtig ondt i maven. Men pyt med det.
Jeg må være helt ærlig. Jeg synes, at dit forhold til køer er meget, meget mærkeligt. Af den grund, der kan jeg ikke se mig selv gå ind i det her.
Okay.
Altså i kraft af, at dit produkt ikke har nogen funktion, så er jeg altså også ude.
Jeg synes, det er for ulækkert. Jeg er ude også.
Men jeg har også noget andet med, som er gammel, hårdt, muggent mælk. Det hedder ost.
Nu er det for ulækkert, okay? Ud med dig. Og tag dit mugne mælk med dig.
Yeah, this one obviously did extremely well. This went viral in Denmark, and of course it's a strike of genius. So what are we laughing at here? Well, it's the incongruity. Dairy is all of a sudden being presented in a total different light, like the concepts are being mixed around. And the function is clarifying here in the sense that we start to question, like, okay, is it even so self-evident that we humans should be drinking milk? And hopefully the dairy industry is losing a bit of authority as a result. Now, when it comes to using superiority and ridicule and arrogance, cat humor, it's very important to understand that the game is skewed. And to illustrate this point, I want to use another recent case from Denmark, where a vegan activist is approaching the newly appointed Minister of Environment and Food with a question about piglet mortality. And that went down something like this.
Jakob, folketingsår, og det handler om dyrene i år, er det rigtigt?
Om dyrene?
Griseunger, der bliver slået ihjel i laderne, og hanskyllinger, der bliver blændet, og hanskyllinger, der bliver blændet, og
Hvor vild jeg er med bacon. Hvor vild jeg er med bacon. Hvor vild jeg er med bacon.
Mener du det? Det er godt, jeg har kamera på, når du siger sådan noget lort, mand.
Jeg elsker bacon. Jeg elsker bacon. Jeg elsker bacon.
Og kæft, hvor er det sindssygt, at du siger det. Er det for meget? Ja.
Now, why can he get away with being so arrogant and using this humor based upon superiority? Like, why can he get away with that? Well, he can get away with this because he doesn't need to think about or care about how the vegans feel about this. He knows that he's never going to get like the votes of the vegans, so he just doesn't care about them at all. And he's probably expecting that, although he's also reacting as an instinct here, he's probably expecting that the Danes will actually like his kind of humor here. And unfortunately, that was the case. This clip got a lot of media attention, and you'll see that a lot of Danes, with their supreme humor, love the bacon joke. And the bacon joke is probably having another renaissance in Denmark right now as a result of this. Now, this illustrates a point about the relationship with using superiority where the game is skewed. So in general, you can say that meat eaters don't really need to worry much about using humor that's based upon differentiation or where the effect is differentiation, because they're not trying to change the vegans. They're just trying to make fun of them. But when you're making fun at the expense of someone else, where someone else is the butt of the joke, you're pushing them away, you're polarizing people. Now, advocates don't have that luxury. If we use humor that's based upon superiority and at the same time trying to connect and persuade and create change, we're going to have a very, very hard time. So we're playing two very different games, and although there's a huge temptation to use superiority humor when you're met with it, like that's your natural instinct to reply with this kind of humor, it's actually not advisable in most cases. And then you might say, that's not fair. I want to say exactly what I want to say, whenever I want to say it. And that's totally your right. You can do that. But if you are concerned with being an effective animal advocate, at least you need to understand what is the consequences of the way that you talk. So power seems to be pretty powerful. So humor seems to be pretty powerful. But should we also be able to laugh at ourselves? Let's look at a case. So this is a case from a business ethics training. You work in a purchasing department and have been asked to select a vendor for an upcoming purchase. One of your competing companies is owned by your manager's spouse. Your manager told her that she wants you to make the decision on your own and not to give any extra consideration to her husband's bid. In your judgment, the husband's bid has the best value. How are you going to handle this? Now, the management are not trying to really find out how does the co-workers feel, like what do they really think. They're trying to present a new entity, an ethics office, which they want the co-workers to use in these situations where there could be some ethical concerns. So when the co-workers are presented with these four options, it's obvious straight away that the one with the ethics office is the right answer. So the aim of the exercise is to get people to, acknowledge that this is the right thing you have to do. But, who's management to tell you what to do? Like, you might think something else, and you might, want to argue for that. So the psychologists, they're interested in seeing if applying humor in this situation, can we make more people choose the right answer? Can we make this more persuading? And so they they created different test groups, and they give them different cards with the answers on, and on some of the cards there's like a funny cartoon, or maybe there's a joke, or like a funny drawing. And those things doesn't really show any significant change in the persuasion rate. But then they have one example that makes a difference. So what are you going to do? Select the husband's bid, make the purchase, talk to the legal department, tell your manager you want to discuss it with the ethics office, select the best bid and make the purchase, or try to break up the marriage. Now, the test group that got this version actually performed a lot better. It showed a significant change. More people were persuaded to pick C. So why is this? Well, Dogbert and Dilbert, I don't know how known they are here, but in North America, where this example is from, they're very well-known characters, and they're kind of poking fun about management. So by using Dogbert here and this ironic line, try to break up the marriage, the company or the management shows that they're not so, they can laugh about themselves. They're not so serious all the time. And this actually confirmed the psychologist's theory that they were out to prove, that if you're able to laugh about yourself, crack jokes about yourself, not only are you going to be more likable, you're actually also going to be more persuasive. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if somebody's coming off really hard wanting to sell you something or tell you to act in a certain way or do some certain change, you're kind of like, okay, back off, man, it's too much. But if somebody is laughing about themselves, you're like, okay, this person is not, trying to push these things so hard, so your defenses come down and you're more willing to listen to what the person actually have to say. So let's have a look at some people who are really good at laughing at themselves and laughing about vegans. These are some vegan actors who's doing some amazing comedy. They are Italian, called The Vegan Chronicles. I'm just going to show you one example, but there's a lot, and I'll encourage you to look further into it.
Insomma, te stavo a dire, Francesco mi ha invitato al compleanno suo. Compleanno a cena fuori. Ho detto non mi mangio un cazzo, però vabbè, per Francesco se va. Tiè.
Sono vegani, sì.
Sono crackers.
No.
Vabbè, sono entrato nel ristorante e vedo già tutti che mi guardano male, che si vede che non vedevano l'ora di
Ma hai letto gli ingredienti?
Oh, sono crackers, che vuoi che sia? Farina, acqua, sale. Cioè pure del sale, manco il sale. Comunque, mi sono messo a sedere e tutti quanti che si sedevano c'era sta tensione e c'era sto cameriere col piatto, col prosciutto e la mozzarella. Ma io dico, t'ho detto che sono vegano, ma che mi dai la mozzarella e il prosciutto? Ma che cazzo? Però vabbè, uno dice, vabbè.
Claudio, no!
Che c'è?
C'era l'uovo.
Cosa? Devi... È tutto a posto.
No. Devi sempre controllare.
No, non dire così. Non dire così.
Ormai per me è finita. Sono spacciato. Continua per la tua strada, amico mio.
Pretty good. So being able to laugh at yourself and be a bit ironic about your own lifestyle and your own rules, etc., it might actually make us a little bit more likable. So here's a challenge for you guys. Next time you encounter online, Facebook, a really stupid joke, a meme that's based on superiority and ridicule, and even if it's really lame and tiresome, instead of reacting the same old way with being angry and annoyed, creating differentiation, confirming the vegan stereotype, polarizing the identities even further, try to do something else. Try to reply with a joke based upon belief or incongruity. And if you can post a better joke than the one originally posted, also about vegans, if you can post a really good joke about vegans, you might actually be able to create some identification and clarification. So you refute the vegan stereotype, and people are expecting you to behave in a certain way. Like there's a vegan stereotype out there. So when people post something provoking, they expect you to be provoked. If you're not provoked, if you tell a better joke, you're changing the rules of the game again. Now the game is not about who's like powerful, who's able to ridicule the other. The point is about who's the funniest. And you change the rules of the game, and you might even be able to create some identification with the people looking into these jokes. Now, identity and humor, if you ever find yourself laughing at humor based upon superiority, someone else being the butt of the joke, of an arrogant joke, you might consider to also be able to laugh about it when the joke is about your own identity. Or as Daniel Sloss says in his new Netflix show, Jigsaw, which I recommend you to watch, there's a lot of jokes about vegans and also some really good observations about vegans. You're fully 100% allowed to be offended by any one of the jokes in the show. This is your right. All I ask is that you are offended by one joke, could you please have the common decency to be offended by all of them? And I think there's a point here. If we laugh at somebody else when they're the butt of the joke, we need to be able to take the joke ourselves as well and not be so upset about it. So humor is your ally. We're getting to the end now. Humor really is your ally, and I want you to treat it like that. Not only can apt humor be really effective in communication and persuasiveness, it can also make you a more likable person. Humor is a very valued trait in most cultures, and by being able to laugh at yourself, you are going to be more likable. But it will also make your own life easier. You'll have less confrontations, less negativity in your life, and you might even realize that you have more energy to be a good animal advocate. But humor is not just a strategy. It's valuable in its own right. So if you only get 1 point from these 45 minutes of me talking, it should be learn to take a joke. Questions?